Well, welcome everyone. It's 1 minute past. We've got looks like a solid group in here today. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for another Winning Wednesday. For those of you that haven't yet joined us for one of these, here at ezHomeSearch, we want to make sure we're giving back to the greater real estate community, and we do open trainings for anyone that wants to join, and not just our exclusivity partners. And today we're very fortunate to have our very own COO, Travis McClure, joining to share some of the things that he learned over the past year working with easy seller leads, how he's able to get to about 10% conversion. I think I'll let you get into it, Travis, but his past life before this ran a team, was a very successful real estate agent, took the leap of faith, saw what we were building here at Easy, and we're fortunate to have him leading all things operations, sales, marketing, client success. So yeah, we're excited to have him present some of the things he's learned today. And yeah, if y'all don't mind, just dropping in the chat if you have questions. I'll be keeping an eye on things. We want to make this as engaging as possible, and obviously make sure y'all are getting massive value out of these sessions as well. So as Travis is going through things, obviously we don't want to throw him off his rhythm too much as he's outlined some nice points to share with y'all. But go ahead and drop questions or comments in the chat, and I'll queue them up for Travis to get to. But Mr. McClure, you want to kind of take it away from here?
Appreciate it, Mac. Just a real quick little bit about myself. I've met a lot of you guys at Conversion Con and on different Zoom calls. But just a little background on myself. I've spent the last 20 years of my life almost dedicated to either sales or some sort of business development. About a decade of that has been in the real estate industry. I've been lucky enough to wear just about all the hats. I've been top producing single agent. I've held various roles in operations, in brokerages, and teams. I've been a team leader, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, kind of running my team on online seller leads from ezHomeSearch. A big part of my story, too, I just want to tell real quick, I haven't really told it too much, is I'm also coming out of Veterans Day. I think it's relevant. I'm an Army veteran. I served back when I was in my young 20s. My wife kind of told the story on Facebook, so it kind of brought it up for me. And back in 2021, when I was 40 years old, I had this idea that I wanted to go back in as a reservist. I'd been out of the military about 16 years. I was in the height of my real estate career. And I said, hey, I want to go back and do this. And I kind of stepped away from real estate in end of 2020 into 2021. I had to go back through basic training at 40 years old, back through infantry school. It was a very neat experience. But then I kind of stepped back into real estate when I came home, right? I'm a reservist. I do the 1 weekend a month, 2 weekishes a year. And I met Preston Guyton. I met Josh and Nick over at Palms Realty. And I came on board as their operations manager. And they said, hey, let's grow this team. And Palms Realty at that time was about 12 agents. In a real quick time frame, we grew that to about 120 agents. And I say all that just to say, number one, shout out to Preston Guyton. He's supported my crazy military journey the last few years. He's never given me a hard time about having to step away and serve. And it brought me back into team leadership as well. So I want to talk about the online seller leads, I feel like that's the more relevant part of my story for today's call. And why is everybody talking about online seller leads? And why are a lot of business leaders leaning so hard into them and doubling down into them? There's two key stats from a recent study about online seller leads. Number one is 88%. 88% of all sellers are online doing their research first before they talk to a realtor. Right, so they're Googling, they're clicking the ads. What's my home worth? They're getting to the home value estimates. They're getting the cash offers in exchange for their contact information. It's happening. 88% out there are doing it. The other key stat is 59% of these sellers are only talking to one agent before they list their home. Right, so that's why this has become a really relevant lead source in the last year to 2 years. That's why we're talking about it. That's why so many people are talking about it. What I learned, and Greg Harrelson talked about it at Conversion Con. Greg Harrelson, who's going to do our Winning Wednesday in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, he's going to do our Winning Wednesday. He's going to talk more about online seller leads, his perspective. But I also found the same thing he found. It's about a 10% conversion rate on online seller leads. And the other cool thing about them versus other online leads, a lot of these leads, majority of them are going to come in middle of the funnel. So the next 3, 6, 12 months, they're going to do something. So that's what makes this a very, very lucrative lead source and something that I think all business leaders in real estate right now should be looking into. So I'm going to talk about best practices. I'm also going to talk about a bunch of the mistakes I made, because first getting these leads, I made a ton of mistakes, and I feel like they're really good learning points, and I'm going to kind of throw them out there so you don't make those same mistakes. I had to learn and adjust. So I'm giving you what I did wrong, and you can adjust ahead of it. So first and foremost, when we look at a buyer lead that comes in online versus a seller lead that comes in online, you got to approach it very differently. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what my approach or what I always taught as an approach for a buyer lead, right? We talked about speed to lead. For years, speed to lead. The lead comes in, you call them right away, 5 minutes or less. And I'm going to tell you, you got to throw that out the window. I'm going to tell you why. So speed to lead with the buyer leads, my cadence with a buyer lead was 8 to 10 times within the first 48 hours, right? I wanted to make that contact. So for me, it was a double dial. It was a text. It was 2 emails and a call all in the first day. And then that second day, it was a text, a call, a text, and an email, right? Really aggressive buyer lead approach. Why? Because a buyer lead, you got to think about the mentality. They're online. They're clicking around. They see that house that they love. They want to get their question answered, or they want to get in there to see the house, right? And they're going to keep clicking until an agent gives them a call. That's why speed to lead is so relevant with buyer leads. Seller leads is way different. Seller leads is a much different mentality. You got to think they're doing their research. They're in research mode. And like I said, in exchange for their contact information, they're going to get the information they're looking for, which is how much their house is worth or possibly a cash offer. They gave their contact information. They got the information they're looking for. They're not clicking on a million different sites. So take a breath here. You get a new seller lead. You don't need to do speed to lead. Matter of fact, I found speed to lead just freaked them out. The mistake I made initially is I would call them really quickly and I would say, hey, Scott, I saw you just requested a home value request. It sounded super big brother-ish. People were already guarded when a realtor calls them on the phone, right? So what I would get is a lot of objections, and I would get a lot of smoke screens making that type of call. So you got to write this down. This is important. Eliminate I saw. Eliminate I saw from your vocabulary when you call the seller lead. The other thing that was key is don't call them right away. Sounds crazy. I'm telling you, I had much better pickup and much better conversations when I waited. On average, I would wait about 3 to 6 hours. Sometimes I would even call them the next day. So if I got one on my phone and it was dinner time, I didn't freak out. I called them tomorrow. Hey, whatever time I'm scheduled to prospect tomorrow, that's when I called them. Okay? So eliminate the I saw from vocabulary and slow down, right? So the approach I use with them, I'll give you my cadence first, right? Because I think that's important. I say with the buyer leads, it's 8 to 10 times within 48 hours. Seller leads, much different. So a seller lead in that first day, I would call. I always double dial. Anytime I call somebody the first time, I always double dial, right? Just higher rate of pickup. So a double dial and then an email, right? If they didn't answer, I sent them an email. And Mac, I actually sent my script, my email, my text script all to Mac. He's going to email that to you guys after this. So day one was a call and an email, right? Way different than the buyer lead. Day two, I tried to call again, and then it was a text, right? So again, I sent all that to Mac. So finally, when they do answer the phone, I'm going to give you my script. I had to learn the hard way to eliminate I saw. I can't say it enough. That's where most agents mess up with these. Don't say I saw. I went back into my realtor toolbox and I pulled out my just listed, just sold script. My old school, there's a million different variations of this script. People will call it circle prospecting, but I'm telling you, that's the script that works. So you don't call them right away. You wait at least 3 hours. Sometimes you even call them the next day. And I would just use my just listed, just sold script. And I'll go through mine. I shared it with Mac. He'll send it to you. But the script I used sounded just like this. And I'll kind of talk through it. And I'll tell you why I said and why I asked the things I said, things I asked. So it would be ring, ring, hello. And I would say, hey, is this Mr. Jones? And they're going to answer one or two ways. They're going to say yes. They're going to say, who's this, right? So once they confirm that's them, I say, hi, Mr. Jones. This is Travis McClure with Palms Realty. How are you doing today? And I pause, right? I just pause. 80-20 rule here. Nikki talks about it all the time, our conversion coach from Digital Maverick. 80-20. You want to do about 20% of the talking. You want them to do about 80% of the talking. This initial phone call, and if you're a Follow Up Boss user, the best part is it records your calls and it transcribes your calls. You're in data collection mode here. Data collection. So the other thing I'll say too, there's a bunch of real estate coaches out there, I listen to them all too, that would probably tell you never to say, how are you doing? Or ask, how are you doing? I've done it for a million years. And I'll tell you, my strategy in the first 20 seconds of this call is I want to fool them for a split second to think that they know me. So I'm like, hey, Mr. Jones. Hey, Mr. Jones, this is Travis McClure of Palms Realty. How you doing today? My goal in that first 20 seconds is to make them think for a split second they know me and I'm just calling them back. Right? I'm telling you, it works. If you ask it, I call it the friends and family effect. I'm going to talk to Mr. Jones just like I would talk to Scott if I called him on the phone. Right? We're buddies. We're going to have just a casual conversation. That's why I use that. So once they give you that response, there's a lot of different responses you can get to that question. Again, I'm in data collection mode. I'm trying to figure out what they have going on. I transition into why I'm calling them. And I always want to show people I respect their time, right? I never want to ask, like, this is another mistake. I've listened to thousands of phone calls. Another mistake realtors make, they'll say, hey, Mr. Jones, is now a good time? They're always going to tell you no. I promise you it's never a good time if you ask that question. I promise you. But I want to show them I respect their time, and then I want to tell them why I'm calling. So I say, hey, Mr. Jones, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just sold a house at 597 Market Street, right down the road from you. And I was just calling to see if there's anything I could do for you. And just pause and just listen, right? See what their response is. You could get the objection. You could get the smoke screen. You could even go in the direction of a listing appointment. There's a lot of different ways that call could go, but just listen and collect the data. Let's just say they're not ready right now, right? Most of the time, you're not going to list them on the first phone call. I still want to ask them 2 more questions, right? I want to get 2 more asks in there. So my next question is, okay, Mr. Jones, well, let me ask you this. If you were ready to do something right now, is there a realtor in our area you would work with? Right? So I asked them that question. It's a pretty good indicator. It's a good question to ask because they're going to tell you if they've already spoken to a realtor. They're going to tell you if there's a realtor they already have a good relationship with. I can tell you from asking this question over and over again on a bunch of different phone calls, I can tell you 9 times out of 10, they'll say they can't remember the realtor that they used when they bought their home because the realtor is not staying in touch with them. So it's a great question to ask, right? If they do say, by the way, sometimes they will be like, yeah, we use Scott over at Remax. I always pretend I knew Scott. Yeah, Scott's a great guy. And then I just transition to my next question, right? So my next question goes, great. Well, I'm sure at some point you're going to buy or sell something someday. I'd love to have the opportunity to be that somebody when you do. Is it okay if we stay in touch? Right? Let's say that you've had a ton of really good rapport in the conversation, right? It's been a good back and forth. They've shared a lot about their story and what they have going on. You've kind of shared a lot about what you do and why you're calling. You can ask the question really differently. You just say, hey, it's okay if we stay in touch. You don't have to give them the whole someday I'd love to be that agent that you work with. And then once they confirm that it's okay to stay in touch, I say, okay, great. What's a good email? I always ask that. I'll tell you the thing with on my salary is you're almost always going to get an email address with the lead. Let's confirm and get another email or make sure it's a good email, right? Some people put in bad emails when they register for stuff. So once they confirm their email, I say, hey, Mr. Jones, is this your cell phone number we're talking on? I confirm the number as well. Those are both good indicators. Even if they've told you we're not ready, we're not selling, but they actually corrected you and gave you different contact information. These are really good indicators to stay in touch with this lead, right? Like they corrected you to make sure you had the right email address and they corrected you to make sure you had, the better cell phone number to call them at. These are good indicators that like, hey, I want you to stay in touch with me. We are thinking about doing something, even if they didn't say it on this initial phone call. And then simply I just close the call out. Great. Well, I'm going to stay in touch mostly through email. I'll reach out to you every now and again. If you need anything at all, or you have any questions about the real estate market, feel free to reach out. I'm Travis McClure with Palms Realty. and I close it out, right? What I found with these leads, I didn't say this in the beginning, I forgot to, but I found with these leads, on average, they convert in about 3 to 6 months in that window. That's where most of them will convert, right? And I'm going to tell you my follow-up plan because it's strategic and part of this as well. For me, my entire real estate career, any email address I've ever collected, I have in a database and I send an email to once a week, right? So this entire database, I've done it for a million years. Matter of fact, my email went out this morning, goes out 8 o'clock every Wednesday morning. It's a market update for Myrtle Beach, right? It's something I create every single week. They go into that database, right? The second thing I do with these seller leads is I put them on a 30-day follow-up process, right? And my cadence for that, right, is call, email, text. So every 30 days. So I had a conversation with them today. I'm going to email them in 30 days. And they're getting that weekly email from me. It's like a bulk email. My email in 30 days is going to be directly from me to them, right? It's going to be something relevant to a house that maybe just listed in their neighborhood or just sold in their neighborhood. It's going to be something that's specifically for them from me that I put together, right? And then a text, and then a call, and then another call. So months 3, 4, and 5, they're getting a call. I'm sorry, a text, a call, and a call, right? 3, 4, and 5. Why? Because those are the 3 months I found that they actually are ready to list. So I call them on day 1, day 30, they get an email, day 60, they get a call, day 90, they get a text, and day 120, they get another call. Does that make sense? So that's my follow-up process with them. Mac, do you have any questions that have dropped in there while I was going?
No, nothing, just about the recording if it would be accessible, but no questions so far. Y'all go ahead and drop them in if you have anything lingering in the back of your brains.
Yeah, and again, I sent my email and my text to Mac that I sent in the initial phase. I shared my script with you, but it's a basically just listed, just sold script. A question I get sometimes from agents: well, what if I haven't sold a house in their neighborhood? Look, see if your company has, right? You change the I just sold to a we just sold. Well, okay, well, I work at a smaller company and we haven't sold anything near them. Well, find a house that's sold near them, something that's sold near them, and you say a house just sold near you. So leverage what you have around you, and email them the same way. When you email them in 30 days, you email them the same way.
We did get a question from Melissa about snail mail. Did you incorporate any direct mailers into the plan?
Yeah, outstanding question. I did. So I did have a list of some where I just never got them on the phone, right? Like, and by the way, the contact rate on these is really good. I would take all of them and I would put them through a find the number system. I know Greg Harrelson talks about one. What's the one that Greg uses, Mac?
Gosh,
Go
he
ahead.
dropped it in the group. I'll track it down. I think Halverson has one that he's used in the past. I think there are a handful. There's some different options out there for sure.
I was a RedX user. I would just put it through RedX. So every seller lead that came through before I called them, I put it through RedX, and now I had a bunch of numbers. Someone just shared one, bunch of numbers, a bunch of emails, right? So my contact rate with these were up over 50%, right around that 50% mark, right? That's like I got a lead and I talked to somebody, right? For the ones I didn't talk to, that's where I used direct mail or snail mail. I used a yellow letter process. I think Preston's kind of talked about it in these groups before. And simply in that, I would use 1 or 2 strategies. I would use a home just sold, or if I just sold, I'd have that type of letter. It's like that. The Robo ink makes it look like a handwritten letter. And I would send it. So I would send it to that entire database, or I would use I have a buyer who's interested, that script as well. Gotta be careful in our market, right? The market we're in right now, it's a harder script because there's not as many buyers floating around ish, right? I know the market's starting to pick up. So I found the we just sold or we just listed Robo Ink letters to be pretty effective.
Nice. Yeah, I think a couple comments. TruePeopleSearch.com, Scott Patello. I think that's what Halverson also mentioned. And then Michaela mentioned white pages.
Yeah, white pages to reverse lookup. Like I said, I use Redx. I did the geo leads in Redx. I like it because it gave you a bunch of numbers and a bunch of emails.
Yeah.
I did that
Good.
for every lead that came through. Every seller lead that came through, I always put it because you're only using one credit or however many leads you got, right? So I'd put it through and then I would just input that information into follow up boss and just had it. And I would just dial through those numbers till I got them on the phone.
Sweet. More options coming in, binverified.com.
There's a lot of them out there, yeah.
They're gonna keep coming all day. Yeah, I had a pretty dumb question, but as they say, there are no dumb questions. When you say double dial, Travis, what is that? Is that literally just like you call them if they don't pick up, you call them again, or do you hang up before it comes through and then wait a minute? Is there any kind of specific trick there?
No, and actually, I got this trick. It's not a trick. I got it from other Travis Halverson. But yeah, you just call. A lot of times when you call nowadays, it'll go right to their voicemail, or they'll block it because they don't know the number. You just call 2 times in a row.
Got it.
Times in a row, they're more likely to answer.
It also gets past their do not disturb setting.
There you go.
Oh, nice tidbit there.
Yeah, when I added that to my arsenal, my pickup rate like went through the roof. For buyer leads and seller leads, by the way.
Yeah. Gang, what other questions do we have for Travis while we've got him hostage? Oh, do you leave a voicemail if you don't pick up? Thanks,
No,
man. No
no,
voicemail.
I didn't leave a voicemail. If day one, again, I didn't leave a voicemail. I sent the email. If they didn't answer, I sent the email. And the next day I would call. And if they didn't answer, I sent the text. That was my strategy.
So text serves as a bit of a voicemail replacement. What about in the 3 month, 4 month? Because I think there was a call that you mentioned, call, text, call, and sort of three,
Yeah.
four, or four, five, six.
So
Do
I
you
do
leave a
utilize
voicemail at that point?
voicemail. Yeah, I do utilize like leaving a voicemail after I've spoken to somebody. So let's say I called Scott and we had a great conversation, and then I get to the point where I'm going to call back, right? It's my follow-up call. I will leave a voicemail then, but then I'll also send them an email.
Another good tip from Nikki. She said text ahead of time. So this would throw off the cadence, but I think it's a great, strategy to incorporate. Hey, name, it's agent. And that way, when you ring them next, it says maybe agent. And I think anyone with an iPhone has experienced that, where it's like maybe Travis. And so that
Right.
always looks a little bit more familiar, rather than just some random number.
Yep. Absolutely.
Interesting. And Halverson saying to make sure it doesn't mention company name when you do leave a voicemail.
Voicemails nowadays, like I said, are just verbal text messages that you can leave. I mean, my iPhone transcribes all of my voicemails. I never actually have listened to a voicemail in years, I think.
Yeah,
I
that's a
just
great
read it
point.
though. I'll read it. You know what I mean? It's just a text message now.
True. It's a good point. Probably have more higher chance of delivery, right? A lot of phone carriers are blocking
Yo,
text.
that's a genius thing to think about. I didn't even think about that, Travis. You're probably right.
Maybe.
That's probably going to go through more than a text message.
Nowadays it will, right? You're probably 100% spot on.
Oh, for
This
sure.
could turn into a mastermind.
We're start doing that, man. We need to figure that out. To start voicemail dropping people. Okay.
Yeah.
Two other questions. Scott asked, what are your thoughts on video text? Have you done anything, like that to record like a quick selfie and sending it off? I'll start there and then I'll follow up with the second one from Brittany as well.
Scott, I have more of a face for radio. No. I'm just kidding. I'm a fan of video, but with video text, it's especially when you're calling or texting somebody for the first time. Like the carriers have gotten so hard about what they'll let through.
Hmm.
I know early in my real estate career, I definitely utilized things like bomb.
Yeah.
Got through to people quite a bit, and I would definitely video text quite a bit, like early in my real estate career. But this last, I'll say 12 to 24 months, it's hard to push through stuff like that through, especially if you're not saved as a contact. That's just my two. Maybe Travis or Nikki, that's more their wheelhouse. They could probably comment on that a little bit better.
And then the next question from Brittany. Hey, Brittany, hope you're doing well, by the way. When you're following up with them in the 30, 60, 90 day, what are the talking points that you're using?
Yeah. So I want to do a little bit of research before I call them, especially call them, email them, or text them. I'm looking at things that have, like, what's going on in the market around them. And that's where I want to gear that second conversation, right? The first time I kind of just asked them, I let them know and gave them an ask. That second time, I know by the time I talk to them again, it's been 60 or 90 days later, probably by the time I get them on the phone. And I want to talk to them about what happened in their market. Or maybe they gave me a pain point in my first conversation. That's a good point too, right? That's why I told you in that initial call, I'm in data collection mode, right? I want them to do a bunch of talking. They may have told me life event they have going on, right? Or they may have told me like, hey, we're waiting until XYZ, and maybe that's what I'm talking about. But if they didn't give me much, sometimes people, don't want to show their cards. I make it about the market when I call that second time.
Awesome. Another great question from Nikki, and I think this is an important one because CMAs can be fairly time intensive, I'd imagine. Do you think teams should always be creating a CMA for new seller leads that come through, or are you holding that for certain qualified leads?
Yeah, I experimented with that. It's a really good question. I experimented with that in my initial email when I first started getting these. I tell you, I I made a bunch of mistakes initially, right? I was real heavy on that. I saw you put in a home value request. I'd hit them with the heavy with the I saw, and I would always email them like I'd throw together like a quickish CMA, and I emailed them with all that, like kind of hit them over the head with it, and I felt like I didn't really get too far with it. I like to focus it around that one house that sold in their neighborhood. That one house because in my experience, what I found in these conversations, it's that house that sold down the road is why they're curious about what their house is worth. So if you make the conversation about that, it sounds like what's going on in their neighborhood versus a CMA can be to some people can be too much information and a little bit overwhelming. I didn't have much success sending the CMAs. I don't say it doesn't work. I'm just saying like my method of it didn't work. I just talked about the one house that sold down the street and it created a lot of dialogue.
Like that. That's a great
And
question.
usually I can tell you what I found too. Usually if they're online doing the home value request, something has sold nearby them. It was pretty rare where I couldn't find a comp that would recently not sold. That's what I thought was pretty interesting as well. I think it's that house that sells down the road that gets them thinking about it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, gang. What other questions do we have? And Travis, where are you at? Or are we wrapping up your portion of the presentation?
That's all I have for today. I know Greg, like I said, 2 weeks from today, Greg Harrelson, he's doing that series with John Cheplack as well. But 2 weeks from today, he'll be on Winning Wednesday. He's going to cover some of his strategies. Some of them, I think, parallel just from conversations I've had with him. And Greg, probably the smartest dude I've ever met in real estate. He'll take some of this and probably go a lot further with you. But yeah, I think that's going to be a good one as well. I'm looking forward to hearing him talk about it also.
Yeah, we're going deep on seller lead strategies here, gang. And again, we're excited to have Travis leading today, and then queuing up Greg for 2 weeks down the line. And yeah, we'll keep delivering the value on that front. And as Travis mentioned earlier, I saw some questions about it. We will deliver the recording to folks, and also the scripts that he discussed. So Travis went ahead and created a Google Doc detailing everything that he's saying to his seller leads here. So we'll get both those out for y'all to check out and apply to your business if you see fit. And sorry, I did see one. Sonny, you raised your hand. Did you have a question? What can we help you with?
I have. I don't know whether it is with context to what we're talking about, but is it a rule in the book that if a home bang opposite to yours has been sold for a certain amount, like say $430,000, and just because you have one extra room and a bathroom, it has to be sold for $500,000? Where I feel when I go and visit there, it isn't worth it. The rooms are smaller than even the restroom. So how do you convince, and when especially there's a lot of fixing done in the home because they endured a lot of damage because due to the hurricane. And how do I actually tell them all this?
So that's a really good question. My experience is you don't want to get too granular or too in the weeds around price on the phone. The way I handle a question like that is I say to them, I'm gonna say to you just like I would say to them, that's exactly why we should meet. I'd love to come out, take a look at your house with you, walk it with you. We can look at the pictures of the home that's sold, and we can kind of talk about a pricing strategy based on what you have going on in your home. I use that as a reason as to why we should meet.
I agree completely. I think, for most of the top producers I've heard, they acknowledge the CMA or home value that they received online and explain that it's generally some level of automation and a generalized number. And the best way to provide a true comp and the value of their home is to meet with them. And everything's driving towards setting an appointment and you getting to their home to meet with them and actually take a look at the house. So.
One last thing I want to add, Mac, just in general about the just listed, just sold script, especially if you're a newer agent on this call, that is a great, I call it a tool to have in your toolbox. You can literally use it in any market. I've used that script in a million different scenarios, trying to generate business, trying to generate listings. Just listed, just sold is a great script. Just to have, literally, it works in a bad market, works in a hot market, works in a balanced market. Just a good tool to have in the toolbox.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you. Awesome, gang. Well, if y'all have any other questions, come into ezHomeSearch's Facebook group, drop them there. Travis, myself, Travis Halverson, Nikki, our whole ezHomeSearch team, our conversion coaches are regularly checking in there. We want to make sure we're helping y'all as best we can, and helping y'all level up your games and get more out of these seller leads that you're generating from Easy or otherwise. But again, wanted to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We'll be in touch about the next session, but go ahead and put it on your calendars. 2 weeks from today, Greg Harrelson's going to be leading another strategy session on seller leads and how he's been killing it in that area for the past many years. I don't know how many years he's been doing it, but I think he's got a lot of experience under his belt. But yeah, anything you want to leave him with, Travis, before we let everyone get out of here?
Call the leads. I know Travis Halverson says that all the time. Call the leads.
Do something instead of nothing.
Enjoy your broccoli, Travis.
I hate it, man.
All right, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, y'all. Bye. Cheers.